I never thought meeting my boyfriend's father would change everything I believed about love. Part 1, Shadows Between Us. I stood outside the tall gray house in Seattle. Rain had stopped, but the clouds were heavy, still low over the rooftops. Lucas squeezed my hand. He smiled, the kind of smile that made my heart calm and anxious at the same time. His house was bigger than I expected. The garden was wet, flowers bent under the last drops of rain. I took a deep breath. This was my first time meeting his family. Lucas let go of my hand at the door. "You ready?" he asked. His voice had a warmth that made me weak in the knees. I nodded. "Yeah. Let's do this." Inside, the house smelled like coffee and polished wood. I was trying to memorize every detail. Pictures on the walls. A guitar in the corner. A bookshelf that reached the ceiling. Then I saw him. David. Lucas' father. He was standing in the hallway, reading something on his tablet. He looked up. And something inside me shifted. He was taller than I imagined. His hair was a mix of gray and black, his eyes steady and calm. There was a quiet strength about him. A presence I couldn't ignore. He smiled and said, "You must be Ethan." "I am," I said, my voice caught for a second. I shook his hand. It was firm but gentle. Lucas whispered in my ear, "He likes you. Just be yourself." I nodded, trying to look casual. But I felt like a child. My mind raced. Did he always look at people like that? Or was it something about me? Dinner was simple. Salmon and salad. Lucas talked about his work. I listened, tried to focus. David asked me questions about my studies, my art. His voice was calm, thoughtful. I felt nervous under his gaze. I tried to answer, but sometimes I caught myself staring back. Too long. Too deep. I noticed small things. How he laughed quietly at Lucas' jokes. How he watched the rain outside the window, like he was remembering something. Every time our hands accidentally touched while passing a plate, my chest skipped a beat. I told myself to calm down. This was Lucas' father. I liked Lucas. I was in love with Lucas. Nothing else should matter. After dinner, Lucas suggested we all sit in the living room. David poured tea for us. I accepted, trying not to tremble. He sat across from me, legs crossed. Our knees almost touched. I felt a strange warmth. My heart pounded. I kept reminding myself, this is wrong. I should not feel this way. Lucas leaned back on the couch, scrolling on his phone. He seemed happy, relaxed. I envied him. He did not feel the tension I felt. David turned to me and asked, "Do you like the city?" "Yes. It's different. Quiet. Alive." I smiled nervously. "Good," he said. His smile lingered. Longer than normal. I felt like I could read his thoughts. Or maybe I imagined it. We moved to the balcony. The air was damp but fresh. Seattle smelled of wet leaves and pine. Lucas went inside to call his sister. David and I stayed out. Silence stretched. I wanted to break it. "It's really nice out here," I said. "Yes," he said. "It is." We looked at the city below, lights twinkling in the rain-soaked streets. I wanted to look away. I wanted to stop feeling this pull. But it was there. Stronger than anything I had felt before. I could feel it in my chest, a sharp, quiet pull. "I never met anyone like you," he said softly. I froze. My hands gripped the railing. My mind screamed. He turned to look at me. His eyes were serious, not teasing. Not joking. Serious. My stomach churned. Lucas came back. "Hey, Ethan, can you help me with something inside?" He clapped his hands lightly, breaking the moment. I felt like I had just been yanked from a dream. Inside, I tried to act normal, laughing at Lucas' jokes, talking about my artwork. But my thoughts kept drifting. To David. To the way he looked at me. To the warmth I couldn't ignore. Days passed. Every time Lucas went to work, David and I would find reasons to talk. About books, music, art. About the city. Small things, nothing personal. But the tension was there. Quiet. Heavy. I caught myself wanting to stay in those moments longer than I should. One evening, David asked me to help with the garden. We were planting flowers together. Hands close. Knees brushing. I felt dizzy. I wanted to stop. But I did not. I could not. He laughed quietly at something I said, and my heart felt like it would break. Lucas called me inside. "Dinner's ready." I walked in, but I felt torn. The pull between curiosity and guilt. I loved Lucas. I could not betray him. But my emotions were alive in ways I could not control. That night, lying in bed in Lucas' guest room, I stared at the ceiling. I tried to tell myself it was just admiration. That I was imagining things. But I knew it was more. Something dangerous. Something that could ruin everything. I fell asleep with my phone in hand, a message typed to Lucas, then deleted. I could not tell him. I could not risk it. Not yet. The next day, rain fell again. Gray skies. Lucas had to work late. David suggested we walk through the small park nearby. I agreed. I felt a mixture of fear and anticipation. We walked slowly. The wet leaves crunched under our shoes. Conversation flowed easily. I laughed. I felt comfortable. And yet, each glance, each brush of a hand, sent shivers down my spine. I kept reminding myself, this is Lucas' father. I love Lucas. That is all that matters. But my heart was lying to me. By the end of the week, I realized I could not stop thinking about David. I caught myself staring at him when Lucas wasn't looking. I noticed the way he held himself, the quiet strength, the easy smile. I felt guilt, shame, and longing all at once. The weekend came. Lucas invited me for another family dinner. This time, I knew the storm was coming. I felt it in the air. I wanted to run. I wanted to stay. I did neither. I walked into the house and tried to smile. David was there, waiting. He looked at me. His eyes held questions I could not answer. I held my breath. I knew things would never be the same. Part 2, Shadows Between Us, Tension in the Air. I did not expect the quiet to be so loud. The house felt smaller when Lucas went to work. I stayed in the living room with David, pretending to read a book. The rain had stopped, but the gray sky pressed down on us through the tall windows. I could hear the distant hum of cars, the soft creak of the floorboards. Every sound felt sharper. Every glance I stole at him felt dangerous. David sat across from me, folding laundry. His movements were calm. Deliberate. Every small motion caught my attention. I tried to focus on the book in my hands. Words blurred. My chest felt tight. My mind kept wandering to his eyes. The way they watched me without really watching. Quiet but aware. I shook my head. I had to stop thinking like this. Lucas was upstairs. He trusted me. I could not let anything happen. "Can you help me with this?" he asked softly. I moved closer. Our hands brushed. Heat flared in my chest. I swallowed hard. I wanted to pull away. I could not. He smiled faintly and I thought my heart would break. I kept my eyes on the basket of clothes, pretending I did not notice the way he watched me fold the shirts. I left the living room and went to the kitchen to make tea. I needed space. The smell of boiling water and lemon helped a little. I could hear David moving behind me. He did not speak. Just small sounds, a plate clinking, a drawer closing, the soft tap of shoes on the tile. It was a symphony of normal life that felt anything but normal to me. We drank tea in silence. He offered me sugar and milk. I refused. My hands shook slightly. He noticed. His eyes softened. "Are you okay, Ethan?" he asked. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to run. I wanted to tell him to leave. I wanted to scream. Instead, I whispered, "I am fine." He nodded. That nod made me want to confess everything. Every thought, every feeling. But I did not. I could not. Lucas was my life. I loved him. I had promised myself loyalty. I had to be careful. I had to survive this tension without breaking. Days passed. I tried to keep distance, but it was impossible. The house had a gravity I could not escape. Every time David laughed quietly at something I said, my chest tightened. Every time he reached for a plate or passed me a book, I felt sparks I could not explain. I hated it. I hated myself for feeling it. Lucas noticed the shift. Small comments. Quiet observations. One evening, he said, "You seem distracted." I smiled weakly. "Just tired," I said. But my mind screamed at me. He was right. I was distracted. By David. By thoughts I could not control. I avoided eye contact with David as much as possible. I stayed in my room, pretending to work on sketches for school. But every pencil stroke felt hollow. My heart was somewhere else. It was with him. With David. I hated it. I feared it. And yet, I could not stop. One night, Lucas went out for a late meeting. David suggested we watch a movie. I hesitated. My hands felt clammy. My chest ached. I could not say no. We sat side by side on the couch. The screen glowed. Shadows danced across the room. I focused on the movie. Tried to lose myself. But I kept stealing glances at him. He caught my eyes once. Just once. And the world shifted. I felt dizzy. The pull was stronger. I could feel it in my bones. I wanted to speak. I wanted to run. I wanted to stay. All at once. Days turned into a week. I found myself thinking about him when Lucas was around. Watching him move, laugh, speak. I hated the intensity. I hated the guilt. I hated the truth. Lucas noticed something was wrong. One afternoon, he found me in the study with David. We were looking at old photographs. Nothing unusual, just memories. But Lucas saw the way we smiled. The way our hands lingered near each other. He frowned. "Are you two okay?" I froze. My heart pounded. David looked calm, unreadable. "Yes," I said quickly. "Everything is fine." Lucas did not reply. He walked away. I could hear the tension in the hallway. I felt my chest tighten. I hated what I was feeling. I hated that Lucas was noticing. I hated that I could not control the pull toward David. I stayed up late that night. Watching the city lights through the window. Thinking about every glance, every word, every brush of a hand. My thoughts twisted and turned. I could not stop. I could not ignore it. The next day, we went for a walk in the nearby park. Just David and me. Lucas was busy at work. I felt a mixture of fear and anticipation. Every step, every rustle of leaves, every bird song made my heart race. We talked about small things. Books. Music. Art. But the air was thick with unspoken tension. I wanted to confess. I wanted to stop. I wanted to run. And yet, I stayed. He stopped to pick up a fallen leaf. He handed it to me. Our fingers touched. Just briefly. But my chest felt like it was going to explode. I looked at him. He looked at me. Not too long. Not too deep. Just enough. I wanted to tell Lucas. I wanted to confess my guilt. But I could not. I could not ruin everything with words that were not mine. We walked back in silence. I kept my gaze on the ground. My heart still racing. I knew the tension was growing. I knew it could not stay hidden forever. That night, I wrote in my journal. Tried to sort my feelings. Tried to make sense of the pull between me and David. Tried to remind myself I loved Lucas. I did love him. But my heart was lying to me. By the end of the week, the tension was almost unbearable. Every glance. Every laugh. Every quiet moment felt like a storm waiting to break. I could not escape it. I could not ignore it. I realized something terrible. Something I did not want to admit. I was drawn to David. And it was dangerous. Not just for me, but for Lucas, for all of us. I hated myself. I hated the pull. I hated the secret growing between us. And yet, I could not stop. I was trapped. Between love and desire. Between loyalty and curiosity. Between the man I loved and the man who fascinated me. And I knew the storm was coming. Part 3, Shadows Between Us, The Breaking Point. The beach was supposed to be a place of calm. We arrived early in the morning. The sun struggled to shine through gray clouds. Lucas' family spread blankets on the sand. I carried the basket of snacks, trying to act normal. But the tension in my chest made every step heavy. David was beside me, smiling lightly at Lucas, who was chasing his little sister around. The scene looked perfect. I wanted it to be perfect. But I felt a storm inside. The air smelled of salt and wet sand. Waves crashed quietly in the distance. I put the basket down and took a deep breath. My hands were clammy. I forced myself to smile at Lucas. He laughed and called my name. I waved. David moved closer to me, helping with the blanket. His fingers brushed mine briefly. I felt a spark. I pulled away slightly, pretending nothing happened. My heart was pounding. I hated myself for feeling this way. Lucas was right there. Everything could fall apart in a second. We sat down to eat. Conversation flowed. Lucas talked about work. His sister joked about school. David smiled and listened. I tried to focus on the small talk, but my eyes kept drifting to him. I noticed how his eyes caught the sunlight, how his smile reached them. I wanted to look away. I could not. After lunch, Lucas suggested a walk along the shoreline. I agreed. David walked beside me. Our steps fell in rhythm. I felt the pull again. Stronger. Dangerous. My mind raced. I thought about everything. About Lucas. About David. About how my heart betrayed me. We stopped near a rock formation. Lucas had run ahead with his sister. David turned to me. I could see something in his eyes. Seriousness. Concern. I felt exposed. "Ethan," he said softly. "Are you okay?" I wanted to say no. I wanted to run. I wanted to tell him to leave. But I could not. My voice caught. I'm fine, I whispered. He nodded, but I could see he did not believe me. I hated that he could read me. I hated that I wanted him to. We walked back slowly. Lucas noticed the distance between us. He frowned. I could feel the tension in his steps. I hated myself for creating it. I hated the guilt for enjoying David's attention even a little. Then it happened. Lucas turned to look at us just as David reached out to point at a small crab scuttling across the sand. Our hands touched briefly. Just a moment. But it was enough. Lucas saw it. His eyes widened. His mouth opened, but no words came. I froze. My chest felt like it was being crushed. David looked at me, panic in his eyes. I could not look at Lucas. I could not meet his gaze. The moment stretched. The world seemed to stop. Lucas ran toward us. "Ethan," he shouted. His voice trembled. "What is going on?" I tried to speak. I wanted to explain. I wanted to tell him nothing happened. But the words would not come. My throat tightened. My heart was a storm of guilt and fear. David stepped back. "Lucas, it's not what it looks like," he said quietly. But Lucas did not hear. His eyes were full of hurt and betrayal. I felt a sharp pain in my chest. I wanted to scream, to run, to fix it. But nothing worked. The trust between us shattered in seconds. We walked back to the blankets. Silence fell. The sound of waves and children's laughter made everything feel cruel. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to hide. I wanted Lucas to forgive me. I wanted to forget what had just happened. That night, in the guest room, I could not sleep. Every glance. Every smile. Every touch replayed in my mind. I hated myself. I loved Lucas. I loved David. I was trapped. David knocked softly. I did not answer. He left a note. Just a few words. I did not mean to hurt anyone. I did not plan this. I care about all of you. I read it over and over. My heart broke in new ways. I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream. I wanted to disappear. Lucas did not speak to me. Not a word. The distance between us felt insurmountable. I hated myself. I hated the situation. I hated that my heart could not obey my mind. The next day, I avoided David. Every step, every glance, every word felt like a knife. I could not face him. I could barely face Lucas. Every time our eyes met, I felt the weight of the moment, the betrayal, the tension. David tried to talk to me. Tried to explain. I could not listen. My chest ached. My hands shook. I wanted to scream, to run, to leave. But I stayed. By the end of the weekend, everything had changed. The laughter, the smiles, the simple joy of family gatherings, all felt like a memory of a life I could no longer be part of. Lucas remained distant. I felt his hurt like a living thing. I hated the distance. I hated the guilt. I hated that I could not fix it. David apologized quietly. I nodded. Nothing else. Words were not enough. Nothing could repair the tension now. I spent hours on the balcony, watching the city lights through the gray sky. Thinking about what I had done, what I felt, and what I could not control. I realized something terrifying. I was in love with Lucas. I was fascinated by David. And I had no idea how to reconcile the two. The storm inside me had become a hurricane. I was trapped between loyalty and desire, between love and curiosity. Every glance, every word, every small touch made it worse. I could not escape it. I knew that the moment would come when everything would break. I just did not know when or how. The tension grew stronger with every step. Every laugh. Every silence. Every heartbeat. I felt like I was walking on the edge of a cliff. One wrong move and everything would fall apart. I hated myself for feeling this way. I hated the world for creating this situation. I hated that love could be so complicated, so dangerous, so painful. And I knew there was no turning back. Part 4, Shadows Between Us, The Distance Between Us. I never imagined saying goodbye could feel like breaking in two. The plane to San Francisco waited at the gate. My hands gripped the handle of my suitcase. My chest felt heavy, like the city of Seattle had anchored itself to my heart. I looked out the window at the gray sky and the rain-slick streets below. Every drop felt like a memory I could not escape. I thought about Lucas. About David. About the storm that had shattered everything. I hated myself for leaving. I hated myself for feeling torn. But I had no choice. The tension had grown too strong. My heart was a battlefield. I needed distance to survive. Lucas' voice echoed in my mind. The hurt. The betrayal. The confusion. I had seen it in his eyes. I could not face it anymore. I could not face the judgment, the pain, the questions I had no answers for. David had tried to talk to me before I left. Quietly. Respectfully. He said, "Ethan, I care about you. I never wanted to hurt anyone." His eyes held guilt and something I could not name. I nodded. I could not speak. Words would not fix this. Words had never fixed anything. I walked through the airport, feeling numb. People rushed past me. Their conversations blurred into white noise. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to run back to Lucas. I wanted to run away from the memories of David. But I kept walking. Step by step. The plane took off. Seattle disappeared beneath the clouds. I stared out the window, trying to find solace in the gray landscape. But there was none. My mind replayed the weekend over and over. Every glance. Every touch. Every moment. Every silence. I hated how much it hurt. I hated that I could not stop thinking about them. San Francisco welcomed me with fog and the smell of the ocean. I dragged my suitcase to the small apartment I had rented. The city was new. Strange. Alive. I tried to immerse myself in the streets, the cafes, the people. But no matter where I went, Seattle followed me. Lucas followed me. David followed me. Days turned into weeks. I tried to keep busy. I visited galleries, sketched in the parks, explored the waterfront. I met people. I smiled. I laughed. But inside, I was still trapped. The storm had followed me. The pull between love and desire, loyalty and curiosity, was still there. I could not escape it. I wrote letters to Lucas in my mind. Letters I would never send. Letters that poured out my guilt, my love, my longing. I imagined him reading them, understanding me. Forgiving me. But I knew it was impossible. He had been hurt too deeply. And David. David deserved peace too. Not this chaos I had brought into all our lives. One evening, I stood on the balcony of my apartment. The fog rolled in from the bay. I watched the lights of the city twinkle in the distance. I thought about the last time I had seen Lucas. The hurt in his eyes. The silence that had screamed louder than any words. I closed my eyes. I let the tears come. Quietly. No one could see. No one could judge. I realized something painful. I loved Lucas. I loved David. And I could not have either without destroying the other. The truth was simple. The truth was cruel. Some loves were not meant to be simple. Some hearts were not meant to rest easy. I tried to imagine a life without them. A life full of calm and peace. But every time I closed my eyes, their faces appeared. The laughter. The smiles. The moments that had felt safe. The moments that had hurt the most. I hated that I remembered them so clearly. I hated that I could not forget. Weeks turned into months. I settled into the rhythm of my new life. I sketched more. I visited the galleries more often. I met friends. I kept conversations light. I avoided anything that could remind me of Seattle. But every night, I returned to my apartment and the memories returned. They were ghosts that would not leave me. I imagined Lucas moving on. I imagined him finding happiness. I wanted him to. I loved him enough to let him go. And David. David deserved clarity, freedom, and forgiveness. I wanted them both to have peace, even if it meant I would never find it. One night, I wrote in my journal, I am alive, but I am broken. I am free, but I am lonely. I am distant, but I am full of love. The storm is quiet now, but it is not gone. It waits. Hidden, patient, unyielding. I walked to the bay the next morning. Fog rolled over the water. The city was silent. I let the cold air fill my lungs. I thought about the choices I had made. About the pain I had caused. About the love that remained. I could not change the past. I could only carry it forward. I knew I had survived the storm. But survival did not mean peace. It did not mean happiness. It meant living with the echoes of what I had loved and lost. I understood that now. I understood that some loves were not meant to be fulfilled. Some storms were meant to shape us, to leave marks, to teach us what we could endure. I watched the fog drift over the bay. I let it swallow my tears. I let it carry away the fear and the guilt, at least for a moment. I was alone, but I was breathing. I was distant, but I was alive. I knew I would never forget Lucas or David. I knew the storm would visit me again in quiet moments. But I was still here. Still learning. Still surviving. Still loving in the ways I could. The city pulsed below me. Life continued. Waves crashed. People moved. I stood on the balcony and closed my eyes. I let the wind carry the weight of my heart. I let the fog hide my sorrow. I let the memories linger, sharp and beautiful and painful. And for the first time in months, I felt a small flicker of something I thought I had lost. Hope. Not for us to be together. Not for the past to be undone. But for myself. For the possibility that I could endure. That I could continue. That I could love, even in fragments, even at a distance. The storm was quiet now. But it had left its mark. And I would carry it forever.